Welcome to the Friday edition of Down the Road. We're going to get a chance to visit about a lot of things, not the least of which is some of the breaches of security in the U.S. government. How serious is it? Everyone, both sides of the aisle are saying very, very serious. We're going to talk about that. How did we get to here? Also, we're going to get a chance to visit with an old friend. Mark Schneider is going to join us. She has the right of it. Go ahead, do the Google while we're doing the first part of this show, and you'll see an absolutely great novel that Mark Schneider wrote. But first off, we're going to begin with Seth Masket. Now, Seth is from the University of Denver, and his book is called Learning from Loss, The Democrats, 2016 to 2020. And I have to tell you, Mr. Masket, welcome to Down the Road. Good to have you with us.
Thanks so much.
I'm not going to lie to you. Your book is appropriately titled. So there.
Excellent. Thank you.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's begin with Joe Biden. Obviously, that one was a win. But why did he win? Why was he the nominee?
So, yeah, it's interesting that that's really what I follow over the course of this book. I spent the last 4 years talking with Democratic activists in some of the early contest states in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, and Nevada, as well as Washington, D.C., to try and get a sense of what people influential in the party, what people who are active within the party, who get involved in early presidential primary decisions, what were they thinking about 2016? Why did they think Hillary Clinton lost? And what is that steering them to want for 2020? And just that first question, why did Hillary Clinton lose? That's like an hour-long conversation with a lot of people. People have a lot of theories about that. There's still no agreement within the party about why that election came out as it did. But a fair number of prominent Democrats came out of that election thinking that she lost because of some version of what we might call the identity politics argument. That is this idea that Democrats spent too much time advocating for women, for people of color, for the LGBT community, and not enough speaking to working class whites who responded to that by voting Republican. And I'm not really claiming that is correct, but I am claiming that's what a lot of Democrats believed was correct, and that as long, that sort of led them to think that in order to beat Donald Trump, they had to pick a relatively moderate, older white man. And it didn't necessarily point to Joe Biden immediately, but as long as he was there, as long as he was just this known entity and he was doing okay in the early contests, he had a real advantage. He just had a real leg up on a lot of other candidates who were very skilled candidates, but just didn't have that inside advantage that Biden did.
Well, Mr. Masket, I'm going to tell you this. You can count me among them because the legislative district that I used to serve for 14 years in the North Dakota legislature, the men and women in that district built Bobcats, skid steers. You've seen them as you drive through Denver and you see people working with them. That was union jobs, and that district has flopped, and it is solid Republican now because of what you just described. Those working union members that I used to walk on strike with when we were trying to get them more rights, more benefits, those folks are voting Republican, and they're voting Republican because of identity politics. They might say the wrong word in the bar after work. They might say the wrong joke, but I'll tell you this, Seth, they're tired of being judged by it.
I heard this from a fair number of people, particularly when I was interviewing folks in Iowa. These conversations came up a lot that, I'd ask them, what do they think Democrats need to do? And they would say things like, they need to listen to more country music. They need to talk to their cousin who drives a pickup and just get a sense of why people feel like they're being looked down on and, why they feel like the party has left them. And I think at least part of the story is it's not necessarily this one election. Unions managed to motivate and mobilize a lot of these people to vote Democratic for a lot of years, and unions have just been getting weaker over time. Yeah. They've been getting smaller, and then they just don't have that kind of organization that they used to.
So you do this, and I do the same thing. You're driving down the interstate, you look at a vehicle, and you try, because we both love politics, you're looking at that vehicle, and you're gauging. You're saying, all right, who is that man? Who is that woman? Fair?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that goes on.
There's a little bit of that. You gauge by the make of the car, you gauge by the dress, you gauge by all of that. If I drive down the interstate south of Fargo here. I drive 130 miles every day to work and back, which in North Dakota is no big deal. Time-wise, it's about the same as your commute probably. But if I drive down the interstate and you saw me in my Ford F-150 with my Carhartts on, and you saw a Viking sticker in my back window, or you saw, you know, the fact that I had a shotgun, you know, between and I was going pheasant hunting, what would you think I was? What party do you think I would be from?
Well, for one, I mean that that sort of says rural to me, right?
Yep.
So that would lead me to think Republican.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
that's
And
where a lot of folks
somewhere
are.
along the way, the Democratic Party didn't care about me. Somewhere along the way, they put me in a position where I had to defend things that I didn't want to defend, and so I quit. I quit defending them, and it begs this question: you being from Colorado, you know, now I have to ask you this: have they given up on people in the Plain States like me? Have they decided, what the heck, we're never going to get their vote anyway? Let's focus on the East Coast and the West Coast.
I don't think so. And I think, if anything, that this last year of first of all, the party ultimately deciding to nominate Joe Biden, and ultimately deciding, okay, we actually want to reach some of those voters that we lost in 2016. I think that was part of it. That they ran a very aggressive and I think pretty effective campaign in a number of Midwestern states, including Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, and just said, we don't want to give up on that. Now, that being said, we do see a lot of, the polarization between the parties isn't just about ideology. It's also about geography, where, the Democrats are overwhelmingly the party of the cities now, and Republicans are overwhelmingly the party of everywhere else. I moved to Colorado 15 years ago, and when I moved here, there were still a fair number of Democrats representing rural districts and Republicans representing some urban districts, and that just isn't the case anymore. People are just, people have their geography, and they kind of stick to it as the parties have gotten further apart from each other. But there is still some of that. There is still some of that, yeah.
Except it's gotten worse. And let me give you an example. My sister was a United States Senator from North Dakota. When she came back and ran for re-election, it really didn't matter what job she did. People were so into Donald Trump, she wasn't going to win. I mean, she wasn't going to win. And then you look right across the border into District 7 in Minnesota, you've got Colin Peterson in an ag district, Democrat, served there for a lot of years, chairman of the House Ag Committee, and he doesn't win. And he doesn't just, neither one of these candidates really came close in their reelection. And so, first off, you're spot on. That tells me. Second off, though, I don't think you're ever going to get candidates to run that could win. And that's my biggest fear.
It's harder. And what you want to do generally as a party is recruit for those districts where in a normal year you might not have a shot. But you never know. Something can happen. There can be a scandal, or the economy can either boom or it can crash or something like that. And you want to be able to take advantage of those moments. But for the most part, there aren't that many swing states. There aren't that many swing districts. There's a lot of polarization out there, and it's just hard for parties to pick up that many seats these days.
Learning from Loss, that's his book, and you need to check it out. Seth, let me ask you this. When you take a look at the Democratic philosophy in the Plain States versus it on the East Coast and the West Coast, it was crippling to us in the middle of this country to hear, and it actually came from the middle of this country, it came from Minneapolis, but like you said, urban, rural. When people start using phrases like defund the police, I mean, that was a poison pill. First off, nobody believed it in my area. I'm a Democrat. I didn't believe it. And yet people are running around and saying this. I don't think AOC, I don't think Bernie Sanders cares one lick about whether or not there's a Democratic United States Senator from the middle of this country. And you say that we organize knowing that Joe Biden could win. That means that we organize. That means that we're not the party that Will Rogers says we are as the Democrats. And so I think we just got lucky with Joe Biden. And I'm curious if you see any of that.
So my impression is that, this whole process the Democrats went through in settling on Biden, again, regardless of whether a lot of these arguments are accurate, I think that was a good call to go with Biden. that, given the fairly narrow margins by which he won a number of these swing states, just judging by some of the polling from last year, another nominee might not have picked those up, might not have won in Arizona, might not have won in Michigan. And you'd have seen a different result. And so, that was probably the right call. At the same time, I sort of wonder what to do about those messages. I mean, there weren't very many Democrats actually running on a defund the police message. That was protesters, that was activists, and Republicans were trying to hang that around Democrats' necks. And Joe Biden was actually out there saying, that's not my message. I don't say defund the police. And a lot of people were distancing themselves from it, but they come away from that election thinking, oh, this actually cost us, and we need to push back. So this is an argument Democrats are going to be having over the next few years, is figuring out, how much to move on policy like that, or how much to distance themselves from it as they start thinking about 22 and 24.
Well, they certainly used it to nationalize. In the 30, 40 seconds I have left, where's the GOP go from here? Is it the party of Donald Trump until Donald Trump passes away?
Well, this is so interesting. I sort of want to look into how Republicans are interpreting their election loss on this. And for the most part, they're denying it's even happened. Yeah. They don't, a lot of them just refuse to even say that Donald Trump lost. And so it's hard to build a narrative and to sort of learn a lesson from an election that you don't think you lost. I think at some point, people start to figure out that they're not in charge of the White House. And, it becomes a question of how much of a voice do we still want Donald Trump to have? And can we organize against him, or simply do we keep going in this direction? It's a tricky one for them.
20 seconds. Do you think they're afraid of him?
I think he can mobilize voters that a lot of them can't on their own. And I think they worry about making him angry and having him turn against them. He has a lot of power over other Republicans in their reelection efforts, and I think that really scares them. Where do they find your book? It's available on Amazon. It's available in a lot of major bookstores and at the Cambridge University Press website. Okay. I'm going to buy some, and I'm going to send them to the East Coast and the West Coast. Seth, good to have you on. Thanks for coming on with us. Thanks so much. Great talking to you. When we come back, we're going to head to NDSU. We're going to talk about breaches in federal security right after this when we go down the road.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
For the greatest selection and full menu offering is the Four Seasons Restaurant and Ice Cream Parlor in Garrison. Succulent sandwiches, big breakfasts served all day, and delicious desserts. Easy access in and out for campers and RVs. The Four Seasons Restaurant at the top of Main Street, Garrison.
Are you a thrill seeker, sightseer, or day tripper? The Ford Bronco Sport SUV is built for you. Four Bears Casino is giving away a 2021 Ford Bronco Sport loaded with a ton of interior space, safari-style roof, smooth suspension for any terrain, and easy-to-clean surfaces. Qualify now just by playing your favorite slots at Four Bears Casino. Double points on Sundays. Also get in on Super Senior Wednesdays, slot turning Thursdays, and hot seats on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Spin into Four Bears Casino and Lodge for chances to win.
some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Welcome back to Down the Road. In fact, let's head to one of the pride and joys of the state of North Dakota. Let's head to NDSU. Pratap Katola is with us, and he's a professor at NDSU, and he's good enough to give us his time. Professor, good to have you coming down the road with us.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Joel.
I'm not going to lie to you. The news that I got scared me a little bit. Obviously, we're going to talk about the breaches in the federal government and what happened with the Russian hacking. When you heard about all of this, what was your first reaction?
I mean, my first reaction was, how is this possible? Because over the last many years, we have recognized the security threats that our networks face, and the federal government has been investing billions of dollars to create state-of-the-art cybersecurity protections. And so this hack happened in spite of all these investment and all these protections that we have. So that's what surprised me.
So is this nobody watching the ball? Is this nobody paying attention? Is this an election year where everybody's focused on something else? Because just like you, I have a lot of people asking me, what the heck happened here? How in the world can this happen in America where Russia can get that much information? So how? Were we just not watching?
There are multiple factors, Joel. I mean, one thing is, yes, we were preoccupied with the election. So that was one of our number one objectives, was to safeguard the election infrastructure. And the U.S. cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency is actually tasked with protecting the civilian networks of federal agencies. So they were focused on the election, protecting the election infrastructure. And thankfully, we did go through the election and made sure that all the election machinery was protected. But we seem to have dropped the ball on this attack. So this was a highly sophisticated attack that has never occurred before. So based on the sophisticated nature of this attack and the widespread impact, the federal authorities suspect that this only could be possible by a nation state, and possibly the Russian foreign intelligence, which is called as SVR, which is basically the equivalent to our CIA. So only they have the wherewithal to carry out such a widespread attack.
So when the head of cybersecurity for the United States of America gets fired, and he gets fired because he's honest enough to say, look, we don't believe there was any voter fraud. We think we ran a pretty good election. When you're that quick to get fired and you get fired for political purposes, can you do your job? Or do you always feel somebody's looking over your shoulder when it comes to issues of national security, when it comes to issues of, hey, if I get drug in that White House, I'm going to get both barrels from this guy? I mean, what signal does it send to the world when we find out that since March, somebody's been able to do this to us, and since March, we're sitting here in a situation where the president either didn't know or didn't care?
Yeah, I mean, this is very unfortunate, and particularly national security should not be a political football. And this is something, both the parties should agree that national security is paramount. And it's very unfortunate that the director of CISA was fired middle of November. I don't know if it's fired or he resigned, but that's a fact. So we didn't have a director for the past month, and particularly now because CISA is the nodal agency which is actually supposed to respond to this particular event. So it is so he doesn't have a full-time director at this point. And the other and also the assistant director for CISA was asked to tender his resignation on November 12th, which again is again middle of this issue. So yes, so it is very unfortunate that this has become a political issue, but it should not be a political issue.
So, I mean, we don't know all the details yet of what they got.
Yes.
Will we ever know the details of what they got?
I mean, it is very difficult to stay at this point because the hackers had access to the networks for close to 6 to 9 months, so they remain in the networks for about 6 to 9 months. So they had all the opportunity to transfer data to their servers, and also manipulate programs, and also potentially control the networks. So one of the biggest compromises, the biggest compromise that seems to have happened is the email system seems to have been compromised. So they had access to multiple email accounts. So we are still learning at this point as to the extent of damage that has occurred, but it'll take many months to years to figure out, the actual extent of the impact that this attack has created.
So I have to ask this. There's a lot of people who believe that the Cold War is over, that the U.S. won the Cold War, that when it comes to the Russian economy and it comes to Russian defense, they're really not that big of a threat to us anymore. And that when you look to who's the nation that really we're competing on a world stage, it's China. So because there is an assumption that this is Russia. So this question, let's put it in the context of, okay, we're going to assume it's Russia that did the hacking. It begs the question, why? What are they trying to do? Are they trying to get back into that position on a world stage where they are one of the most powerful nations in the world? Or why do they want this information so bad that we find them on the front page of every paper and on every talk show? I mean, why?
If you see, countries tend to spy on each other. And cyber espionage it's been an ongoing activity between enemy states for a long time. So, this based on the signature of the attack that has happened and the data that they stole, it looks like a cyber espionage, and countries do that to gain valuable information, which could be useful for their decision makers.
So I'm looking at data here from Teresa Payton, who served in the White House Information Office under President George W. Bush. She said, I woke up in the middle of the night last night just sick to my stomach. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm at a 9. And that's not because of what I know. It's because of what we still don't know. That's coming from a Republican administration talking about a Republican administration. And I would suggest or guess that she does know a lot more than I'm going to know. So should I be at a 9? Should I be at a 10? Or should I even be at an 11?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question because it is, again, it's because of the widespread nature of this attack, the number of federal agencies that have been compromised. It's not only the federal agencies that have been compromised, it's also number of Fortune 500 companies. So in fact, potentially there was 18,000 organizations that could have been hacked. So, but of those 18,000, we don't know yet at this point how many actually were actually exploited by this attack.
So get ready. This one's going to get you in trouble if you answer it. So you're probably going to tell me no, but I got to ask it. I do. I've got to ask this. Do you think that Donald Trump cares? You know, the close relationship that he had with Russia and that he's talked about having with Russia and Vladimir Putin. In the 30, 40 seconds we have left, do you think he cares?
I mean, that's a difficult question to answer, and I don't have an opinion on that.
There, see, and you answered very well for an individual that's supposed to be in a classroom telling both sides of it and working at a state university. So I don't blame you one bit, but I do appreciate you coming on, okay?
Yep. Thank you, Joel. I appreciate that.
You bet. It's scary. It's really scary, folks, and you should be scared. And let me ask you this, because much of my audience that watches here as we go down the road, many of you are diehard conservatives and big-time Trump supporters. I would only ask you to do this. Take that step back. Take that step back and ask yourself, if information like this came out and that information was about Barack Obama, what would you think? What would you think? What would be going through your mind today or through your fingertips as you took to social media? I think we both know it. And that's the reason that I'm scared, is because a lot of this country doesn't care. When we come back, let's talk a little news. We'll go to our Newsmaker segment right after this.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
In southwestern and south central North Dakota, on any given day at any given moment, a Dakota Community Bank and Trust customer is logging in or signing on to do their online or mobile banking. We believe that community banking can blend both the past with down-home customer service in-house and the future with modern banking conveniences and technology for our customers anywhere, like here or here, all while honoring our long-standing tradition of community-first oriented banking here at Dakota Community Bank and Trust.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here were terrific. We enjoy it.
They say when the going gets tough, the tough get going. At OK Tire, we're here to keep you going. From Firestone tires and replacements to retreads and even Firestone tracks, we have you covered. Our certified Firestone experts are ready to get you back up and running, no matter if you're on site or in the field, saving you time and money. OK Tire, we keep the tough going.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Kohler Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best built, best backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
We're still going down the road with each other, so let's talk a little news. Let's talk some news of the day. In fact, let's talk about Donald Trump's demands to get those stimulus checks out now. We don't know what that amount is. I like the fact that President Trump is doing all he can to get the checks out as quick as what he can. I know that on the Republican side, they're talking about $600. On the Democrat side, they're talking about as much as $1,200. I know this. That money's going to be put to work if they get it out there. We're all heading into the Christmas season, and we may not be around each other much this Christmas, but we'll still be buying each other something, or at least I hope they will. So it's not trickle-down economics if you get the money to the middle class. It's trickle-up, which works. That works. Trickle-down never worked. When we put money into the PPP program last time and we were looking at the CARES Act, what happened? The money went to the top, to the people, in particular to individuals that were multi-millionaires. Did that money make its way down to the middle class? Or was the middle class just happy with that big screen TV? I think we know the answer, right? It didn't make it down. In fact, more people found themselves unemployed. More people found themselves in a situation where their retirement accounts weren't doing as well as what they could have been doing, and where They went to work each and every day worried about whether or not they were going to have a job the next day. So it didn't make its way down. It didn't. And if the president's looking to get more money into the middle of this economy, into the working class, I applaud him for it. And the quicker it gets there, the better it's going to be. I want to talk a little bit about Dr. Jill Biden. I don't know how this got to be an issue. I really don't. Dr. Jill Biden earned her doctorate. Her doctorate might not be in the medical field, but you know what? She has her doctorate. She is Dr. Jill Biden. And she doesn't go around wearing that on her sleeve. She doesn't. In fact, the people that she interacts with in her classroom, because she still teaches, the people that she interacts with, she says, call me Jill. So here we sit. We've got a nation that is so particular and so partisan that they're out there challenging and having a problem with the fact that Jill Biden has her doctorate, which has earned her the right to have doctor before her name. I mean, give me a break. You know, before the break, I started talking about the what if scenario. What if it was one administration versus the other? What if this was Melania Trump, and Melania Trump had her doctorate and the Democrats were running around saying, hey, she can't call herself doctor. She can't do that. And what if Jill Biden had posed nude? I mean, think about that. The first lady of this nation that is posed nude. I could care less. I really could. I could care less. But ask yourself what it would be if Jill Biden had been that individual to pose nude. It's such a double standard. On one side, anything is acceptable as long as it's us. On the other side, it's like, look, we're going to beat the crap out of you because you're going around calling yourself doctor. When you've earned a doctorate, you have earned a doctorate. And I don't get it. I don't get it. And is it the fact that we're afraid of education and intelligence? Is that part of it? Or is it the fact that she's a woman? Those are fair questions. Those are really fair questions. And I hope we all take a step back and look at it. Now, Joe Biden picked Democratic Congresswoman Deb Haaland to serve as Interior Secretary. The Interior Secretary for the United States of America has a footprint in North Dakota. We're an energy state. We are an energy state. Congresswoman Haaland has a history here in North Dakota as well. She's Native American. She's been very passionate about Native American rights, which puts a smile on my face. Having a Native American in that cabinet and in that cabinet room so that they can sit there and advocate on behalf of Native Americans, good thing. Now, there's North Dakotans that are going to not like her because she went to DAPL and protest. She did. She went there and protest. I didn't agree with the protests. I didn't protest with them. But I'll tell you what, I supported their right to protest. I did. I don't know the reasons that soon-to-be Interior Secretary Haaland protested for. I don't. Whether or not she was supporting Standing Rock or whether or not she felt that we shouldn't be moving oil across the Missouri River, I don't know. You know I'm an infrastructure guy, so I believe in the fact that pipelines work better than rail. I believe that pipelines work better than semis going down the road when it comes to moving oil, and I recognize the need in this country for oil. And if you don't, when you get in your rig to go home tonight, or you get in your rig to go to work tomorrow, ask yourself what it's running on, because there aren't a lot of electric cars here in the great state of North Dakota. So it's going to be interesting. Also, the president nominated Michael Regan. He's chosen Michael Regan to run the EPA. Now, Michael Regan has a history, very much when it comes to the EPA. I think you're going to see tougher standards. I think you're going to see an eye on the ball more when it comes to our oil patch in terms of potential problems. You have a bunch of leaks, you're sitting there and you contaminated the water supply. It's not going to be an aw shucks for Michael Regan. It's not going to be. Now, North Dakotans aren't going to like that. North Dakotans kind of like the aw shucks. We'll look the other way. You can see it from our oil and gas division in the state of North Dakota. You can see it for where we used our federal funds. I mean, we sent $60 million that was supposed to go to Main Street, North Dakota. We sent that to the oil industry. So I know where the government in North Dakota stands. And I know how important the oil industry is to North Dakota. I get it. I understand it. I've supported it in many ways. I don't believe they should have got 60 million of those dollars. I think it should have went to other forms of economic development that were actually suffering, because I don't think the oil industry was on the verge of bankruptcy, quite frankly. But I go back to this, the fact that we are an energy state, and these appointments matter. They matter a lot. And I've questioned the fact, both on my radio show and here as we go down the road, I've questioned the fact that Joe Biden said he was going to be president for all. He was going to govern from that middle stance. Some of his latest picks haven't shown that. I mean, they haven't shown that. I hope they succeed. I hope they govern from the middle, because it's the center left and the center right that get things done in this country. And it's time to start getting things done. I mean, it is. It's time to start getting things done and governing again. Keeping the train on the rail and making sure that each and every day government stays out of your hair and we're not sitting there tweeting out and causing a fight each and every day. It's time to govern that way. That being said, if you look at some of the appointments that Joe Biden's made, it leaves you scratching your head and saying, do we in the upper plain states, do we have a say? Do we matter? And I'm not convinced that we do. I'm not. And I'm hoping that some of that changes, but I'm afraid it won't. I am. The proof is in the pudding. You know, the proof is going to be there when it comes to what happens to us because of these potential appointments. But if you look at it just on the face of it, you have to put a big question mark behind it. You really do. Now, when it comes to COVID, we've got top health officials that are out there, that have been pushing in the Trump administration for herd immunity. They wanted as many people as they could to get COVID. That way it would be over sooner. I visited with a man last night, and he has just lost his father, a man who earned his Purple Heart, a man who fought on behalf of this country. He's gone now. And this man that I visited with last night, his son said, don't let people on your talk show, don't let them get by with, hey, it's just another disease. He was all in on that. He said the tougher stance we can take on COVID, the better. I lost my dad to this. And let's be clear about this. That man I visited with last night, that man voted for Doug Burgum twice. So know that. When we come back, Mark Schneider's going to join us. I've known Mark for years. I have so much respect for this man. He wrote a book, She Has the Right of It. Let's visit with him about it right after this.
Howdy, folks. It's a County Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Boston breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous County Line burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spur rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
For the greatest selection and full menu offering, it's the Four Seasons Restaurant and Ice Cream Parlor in Garrison. Succulent sandwiches, big breakfasts served all day, and delicious desserts. Easy access in and out for campers and RVs. The Four Seasons Restaurant at the top of Main Street, Garrison.
Are you a thrill seeker, sightseer, or day tripper? The Ford Bronco Sport SUV is built for you. Four Bears Casino is giving away a 2021 Ford Bronco Sport loaded with a ton of interior space, safari-style roof, smooth suspension for any terrain, and easy-to-clean surfaces. Qualify now just by playing your favorite slots at Four Bears Casino. Double points on Sundays. Also get in on Super Senior Wednesdays, slot turning Thursdays, and hot seats on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Spin into Four Bears Casino and Lodge for chances to win.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Welcome back to Down the Road. You know what? I don't know who allows someone to retire. There should be a committee that you have to go to because there's certain people that shouldn't get to retire. I've known Mark Schneider for years, and I have watched and I have used Mark Schneider for years because I know how good he was at his profession. He's an attorney. He's part of that Schneider firm that's been representing the people that needed it for years that his son's now in control of. But he did retire. And when he retired, you know what? His passion for Ireland, his passion for, the things that he and his wife traveled to so many times, put him to work. It really did. And so what came about with all that? He took to writing, something that he knew that he could do quite well. I always wanted to go on one of those trips. One of my old reffing buddies went with him, and all he did was talk about it for months afterwards. He had such a good time. But let's bring him in. Mark, good to have you coming down the road with us.
Morning, Joel, and Merry Christmas.
I could tell you this, if I was on that committee, you wouldn't have got to quit, just so you know.
Well, it's a done deal. It's a good gig, this retirement.
Something tells me they still call for advice every now and then. Okay, so you retire, and you say, you know what? First off, I'm getting ahead of myself. Do this. Tell people how many times you went to Ireland.
Since 1970, when I first changed that redhead lass over there, Mary and I, together or apart, have been there about 20 times.
And tell people why this all started.
Well, it started, I just graduated from MDSU in 1970. Mary has been accepted as Experiment International Living as a visiting scholar in Ireland. And I took my degree and went to work my old man busting tires, $2.20 an hour, so I could get enough money to go chase that redhead. And so in August, I went, and I was with Mary for a couple of weeks in Ireland at that time. And we fell in love with the country and each other, and we've been back largely because of that ever since.
So if you sit down with any North Dakotan and you grab a cup of coffee, one of the first questions that's going to come up in the top 10 questions is going to be, where are you from? As though I ever lived in Germany. But 3/4 of me, I'm German and I'm Norwegian, okay? Tell people what you and Mary, for that matter, are.
Well, actually, Mary's more Irish than I am, which makes my kids more Irish than me, which is the way it should be. But I'm about half Irish. My dad was 3/4 Irish, despite that German and Teutonic surname. His father was half Irish and his mother was 100%. So we come by it naturally.
Yeah, well, as you can tell, they're about as fun of people to hang around with as you can possibly be. In fact, you got to see Mark's kind of beer cave area. You're going to see a lot of cool buttons. You're going to see, and you're going to get a cold one as you go. Trust me, I've been there. So what made you decide, okay, I'm retired, time to put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard? You know, you and I are both old enough to say pen to paper. Everybody's laughing when I say
exactly.
that. But what made you decide to take up and write this novel?
Well, I'd been toying with the idea for many, many years, and it was just really more of a product of time than anything else. And I had the time to do it, and I said, well, better do it now. When, you know? So I started writing it, and it just kind of took off. I wrote it over the space 3 to 4 years. I wasn't constant, but towards the end, it was pretty constant for the last several months. But the story of Ireland to me just kept talking to me every time I went, and I just felt it was time to put pen to paper, as you say, and talk about it.
So what's it about? If I picked up the book and I read the back cover or I read the foreword to it, what am I going to see?
Well, it's a multifaceted book. It starts out in Fargo, North Dakota, surprisingly. And the protagonist is a guy named Mark, and Molly, who has a certain resemblance to a wife named Mary of 47 years. And they go to Catholic school together in Fargo. They become embroiled in a tragedy with one of their best friends, who kills himself after being abused by a priest. They have a period of separation, and then they get back together. And then Molly, in my book, has an opportunity to go to Ireland, and so I follow her. And to tie it back to Ireland, I have letters between two sisters, which would be Molly's grandmother and great aunt, who ended up fighting together for Ireland's War of Independence and against each other right after that was over. That was an early part of the 20th century. And part of the goal of my book was to breathe life into all the action that women took in the freedom of Ireland, which was pretty much airbrushed out of history for a long period of time. And so I had Molly's grandparents and grandmother and great aunt were good vehicles to do that. And I tell their story through the letters back and forth when one of them was in jail after the rebellion and the other was out fighting.
So I'm not talking about Mac or Libby. I know that they know the history of Ireland. I know that they are well versed when it comes to Ireland because of their parents' passion. But do you think the millennials get it? Do you think they know about it? If I sat down, let me say it this way: if my young producer, who's 23 years old, if you sat her down and said, "All right, tell me a couple things about Ireland, the politics of Ireland, and the history of Ireland," do you think that they'd get it?
Well, it's a pretty vast subject. And a daunting one to take on. There's so many facets to Irish history and so many tragedies as well, which is really interwoven with the fabric of the Irish experience and the Irish people. They suffered unbelievable heartache and tragedies over a period of hundreds of years. And so I don't know if they would get it or not. I think the millennials, you look at, hear about Northern Ireland, and those called the Troubles, and that was a recent treaty, 1998. Well, that's just one little tiny facet of the end game of what's Ireland's all about, and it's still one is a story that's telling itself.
Yeah, well, the fact that you're a walking history book allows me to call on you a lot. My wife is Irish, which means my girls are Irish, and I'm jealous. I'm not lying to you. It was one of the nationalities that there's two that I would like to be, just so it provokes a conversation. One is Irish, and the other is Bohemian. I think when you're those two things, you have some of the most interesting conversations in the world. And my in-laws are Irish and Bohemian, and I can tell you this. It leads for spirited conversation, or it did before I lost my father-in-law. Where can people find it if they want to sit down and just absorb this novel? Where do they find it, Mark?
Well, you can get it basically wherever books are sold. Zambros has it featured downtown Broadway in Fargo, and of course you can get it online. People are involved in Amazon Prime, for example. You can order it and get it shipped free, and get it in just a matter of days. So there's still time before Christmas.
All right, well, let's get the before Christmas is the key words there, because I can tell you this: there are others. I've got a copy, And there are others that when they come to my house, all of a sudden it seems to disappear a little bit. That's okay. Mark, it is always good seeing you. Let's get this COVID thing behind us and go out and have a cool one, okay?
Sounds great to me. And remember, Joel, the Irish and the folks that wish there were.
Mark, always good to talk to you, man. You take care of that gorgeous
Good talking to you,
wife.
Joel.
You bet, and great family. As you
Merry
know, or
Christmas.
as you could tell, Mark and I go back a long ways. The Heitkamps and the Schneiders have been good friends for a lot of years. You know, it's things like that, right? It's things like that where you've got something you want to do, and you finally have the time to do it, and you say, you know what, why not do it? I hope you're doing that in your life. I've got a couple of those things that I've thought about, and I've thought about them a lot because of Mark. That, you know, you can't just sit there and say, I should. You got to get up and do. And so I hope you do the same thing that Mark Schneider did. When we come back, a little bit of talk about it ain't over till it's over. I'm a Yankee fan, but you know what? It ain't over till it's over. So stick around. We're still going down the road.
Howdy, folks. It's a Caneline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Bossin breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at a salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous Caneline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spur rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the game. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
They say when the going gets tough, the tough get going. At OK Tire, we're here to keep you going. From Firestone tires and replacements to retreads and even Firestone tracks, we have you covered. Our certified Firestone experts are ready to get you back up and running, no matter if you're on site or in the field, saving you time and money. OK Tire, we keep the tough going.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Coulter Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best built, best backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
It's been good going down the road with you. You know, it's a famous line. A lot of people know it. In fact, the very man that said it was a catcher for the Yankees and probably has as many World Series rings as anyone. It ain't over till it's over. I mean, that's right. Yogi Berra said it. He was the very man that caught Don Larson when he pitched that perfect game in the World Series. I think he stood about 5'5", 5'6", ended up being in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and he was right. It ain't over till it's over. And it isn't over yet when it comes to COVID. It isn't. I mean, a lot of us are going to think it is. A lot of us are going to sit there and see people vaccinated and go, all right, you know, we're good. We're getting close to that herd immunity. We're not. We're not. And you know we're not. The Mark Schneider that I just visited with, you know, Mark can't leave that house yet. Many people like him can't leave that house yet. And that's frustrating. It's really frustrating. So I saw Vice President Mike Pence get a COVID shot today. President Trump, quite frankly, if you listen to medical science, which we've been pushing hard on my side of the aisle is talk about science, President Trump isn't at risk the same way other people are at risk. He's had COVID. And so if they're going to set an example, excuse me, in this administration, as for someone taking the COVID shot, they did a good job. They did. They did a good job by having Vice President Pence get that shot and having people see him get that shot. And that's important. It's important to send a signal to the nation that I feel this is safe enough to get the shot. Well, you. I can tell you this, it's going to be a while till I ever get offered one because of the same reason Donald Trump isn't going to be offered one. It's because I've had COVID. And I shouldn't be anywhere near the front of that line that takes that shot. But as I said earlier in the show, I spoke with a man last night whose father earned a Purple Heart, and he lost him because of COVID. And so you have to ask yourself, what would he ask you to do? And I think you know the answer. I really do. We've got to behave. We've got to behave between now and when this is over. So until then, folks, it ain't over till it's over. Good riding with you.